Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today. I just want to touch on a couple of topics around risk management on the blockchain infrastructure. Now, the last panel was great in talking about some of the risks in investing, and I'm going to stay away from that because I think they did a good job about that. And I'm just wanted to take you through a few things in this space. At the end of the presentation, I'll give you a list of items I didn't touch in the risk management space. But this is really about understanding what's happening on the blockchain capabilities. So the overview, you've heard all day today about the details of, the technical benefits of the actual blockchain infrastructure. The fact that you have these blocks, these records that don't get changed, the fact that they're distributed, multiple people are looking at them, the fact that you cannot modify them or break them as you would look at. So the question is, why would there be these issues? Why would I be talking about risk management in this space? When you think of the capabilities that the infrastructure is giving you, you really would expect that blockchain is addressing a lot more of the risk capabilities and the risk issues that traditionally we have been able to have to manage. But there are several risk issues we need to think about. From a risk management perspective, we now have blockchains, we have cryptocurrencies, we have AI coming into the space of the finance, we are coming into the space of healthcare, coming into contract management. And so from a risk management perspective, what do I do with that? Identity theft is still a major issue, and how is that being addressed or managed on the blockchain infrastructure? Have we taken care of it? Do we know who's playing in the blockchain space? Do we really know who all the participants are and what they're doing? There are multiple layers of approval that have been removed, which means we have simplified the process within the space. And what does that look like? Well, how has that changed your processes internally if you were to adopt a blockchain capability, and how are you changing what you're doing on a daily basis to make that happen? When you think about it, there's been some research has been done. There's a lot of identity theft. Between 2015 and 2016, there's been about a 16%, 70% increase, and then 2016 to 17, another 40% increase in losses. And I will get into some details on some of the fraud that has occurred in that space. But first of all, I just wanted to show you the benefits. They still remain. We have a blockchain infrastructure that is transparent. It's providing us with smart contracts, cryptocurrencies that are been talked about all morning, and other records that we can manage like smart contracts across that infrastructure. And it's in all of the technology spaces. You can use it in healthcare, you can use it in finance, there's real estate applications for it. We're talking about it in moving things such as insurance as well. But where are the issues for fraud happening? Most cases, fraud is occurring on the interchange. We'll get into that in a minute. But when you think about it, there's a lot of money being lost in the interchange. Why is that happening? Do you really know who the participants are playing in the space? And who is actually taking advantage of it when you provide the service through the blockchain infrastructure? Those are the three key areas I just wanted to share some time with you on this morning. Almost $1 billion has been lost between 2011 and 2017. As of January this year, there's been another major hack in this space. I will not get into specifying and arguing with what's right and what's wrong. The reality is, access has been a key issue for the blockchain infrastructure. And most of the money has been lost because players in the space, participants, fake participants, radicalized participants, have taken advantage of the lack of access. And in most of these cases, none of this money has been recovered. Okay? So again, there's no criticism of the actual infrastructure itself. What we're getting here is that getting access to the infrastructure has caused major problems from a fraud perspective. How are you protecting that access? How do I know that all of you in this room, given access to the blockchain capabilities that you've heard today, from an investment perspective, from a use perspective, et cetera, will remain valid participants as a part of this. I think some of you will be exposed to some of those cases where people have worked in institutions have decided to reorganize, people leave and get quite upset and take advantage as they're leaving. There are all sorts of reasons why people do this, but the point is people had the actual keys and the right capability to get access to the network, and that's what's caused the fraud. So this is where I think there's a great opportunity, and this is where the capital for a lot of blockchain networks will build and build very quickly. So knowing who the customer is, the platform provides real-time monitoring. It timestamps, provides you a traceable timeline. It gives you information. I think this morning there was a very great example. Make sure that the husbands sign up. You know exactly when he said, "I love you." So when the divorce happens, you know exactly where it came from. Yes, the detail is there. But that hasn't stopped the fraud, right? There are real identities in the network. We know who is there. We've got the information to try to tie them together. And we are able to really, really, really figure out, without going through a whole lot of hidden paperwork, who you are, where you are, and what is happening when it has happened. And last but not least is we have eliminated a lot of the third-party approvals. So with this, we've simplified the process. Have you actually taken a look at your processes internally from a business perspective and made the adjustments for the new opportunities that you've created for the business line? How do you know who is in the network? I would subject you to think about the fact that we do have the ability now to trace people digitally. Yes, we've lost a lot of data on Facebook. Was it actually lost? Or was it given to someone else to think about who you are and what you're doing and to manipulate the way you behave? That's actually what happened. It wasn't lost. It was actually given to somebody to figure out what's going to happen to you and how you're going to be dealt with. So if we could digitally look at you, I can tell from your LinkedIn account, your Facebook account, Instagram, your credit card transaction activity, your phone, your GPS movements, where you are, who you are, what you've been doing, and the fact that I approved you first and how you behaved and what you were doing is all fine. And I can also tell when you are changing your patterns, changing the way you approach things. So with a digital footprint of the participants on a blockchain network, we can very much and very carefully manage and monitor the utilization on that network, who you are and what's happening with it. So we can help to reduce some of the fraud capability that is going on with accessing the network. There was a question this morning about how much data you want to give up about yourself and who's in control of that data. The question comes up again. How much data do you want to give up about yourself and who's in control of that data? Well, when you think about it, these are some of the questions we have to answer because the technology is there, the capability is in place for us to really monitor and manage who you are and what you're doing on the network so we can reduce losses, reduce fraudulent activity, reduce the behaviors that are causing issues within the network. It also draws to the fact that we can tell where you're going. Who did you sell stuff to? Who are the recipients of the transactions that you have initiated? That only goes as far as what I call exit from the program. Because like cash, once I take the cash out the bank and I give it to him, where he goes, what happens with it after that, it's not traceable. So AML does have a lot of support from a digital perspective, but only to a certain point. Whereas from participants on the network, I can continuously monitor and look at you and see what you're doing and see your behavior. From a laundering perspective, I just need to give it to him, and he can go deliver it to whoever he wants, and it's all over. there's no tracing after that. So I need to know who you are, so I can best try to figure out who you associate with, and look within your network just to figure out if you're a good participant or not. But that's as far as it can go. And I can't monitor you on an ongoing basis. So it doesn't quite eliminate the fact that we have anti-money laundering. It just helps to tighten the program a little better. If you think about this throughout the program, we haven't really taken away anything from blockchain. All we have really done is added some capabilities to the platform, to the technology, to help protect the business, protect the environment, protect what you're doing. So if you look at some of the new implementations, Santander, bank out of Spain, just 2 weeks ago, launched a payment system on Ripple. 21 countries across Europe will accept payment in GDP-denominated currencies. Santander is here in Boston. They're huge in the US as well. And in the US, they'll accept it in US dollars. But they've only rolled it out to staff members for the time being, because they know who they are. They know where to find them, and they know exactly what to do. So until they could tighten up that risk system from a KYC and an AML perspective, it's not going to go completely public, if you want to say it that way. But they're testing it with staff. They're across Europe, Latin America, United States, and Asia. Using the Ripple technology, they can take advantage of blockchain, but on a relatively faster network from a performance perspective. And now they have some tools in place to help them with the monitoring of this. So to everything that has been said today, this is off and running. When a bank takes the first step out there, I would assume that they have done quite a bit of due diligence on it. I would agree with that. And they're satisfied that they can handle some of the cases and issues around the KYC and the AML in this space. The slide is heavy on writing, so I'm not going to read that for you. But the details here really is to really talk about the fact that for fraud, there's a way of managing the fraud that can occur on a blockchain infrastructure, regardless of if it's currencies, contracts, or whatever else you're using it for. There's a way of ongoing using digital capabilities to manage and monitor the fraud on the network, manage and monitor the access to the network, manage and monitor the uses and the peer players who are on the network, to ensure that on an ongoing basis, you're not continuously going to lose those large numbers of money that shut 2 firms down, and I think the third firm shared across all of the participants the losses to try to stay alive. Knowing who the customers are that are playing in this space is a key part of this whole process. So it's really important that you understand who gets access to the platform, who gets the network, what they're doing with the network, and when they're doing it with the network. From an anti-money laundering perspective, there's not a lot that you can do post what I call the cashing out of the coins. That person who actually does the transaction you can trace, but beyond that, there's not much more you can do. And the regulators can't really do anything about that either, because today's anti-money laundering capabilities actually don't go that far. All right, so this is actually a step further than using cash. So there's some things that I would say in closing. Security access keys are the key part of what has been used so far for fraud and fraudulent activities. Managing those and making sure you take care of those is a key portion of ensuring that you don't lose half of the value of the firm overnight. Digital onboarding and utilizing digital capabilities for all of the participants in the network is a capability that is available. Talk to you more about that if you need to. But leveraging that to do just not the onboarding, but the ongoing monitoring of the behavior of the participants in the network will be a key portion of making sure you understand what's happening there. And there are many, many use cases for other things that you need to think about. Strategic risk, I have not touched today. Business continuity risk is a very major part of it. If you lose a third of the firm, how do you recover? If you lose $300 million worth of the firm, what happens to you? These are real-time examples that people need to think about as they go through into this launching space. reputational risk. But the one thing that I would talk about is exchange and conversion risk. Several networks, there's so many ICOs going on, everybody has a coin. When I think about it, I always think about Kodak. Kodak issued a coin, and I often wonder, well, why would Kodak get into coin? Doesn't make any sense to me, but when you think of Kodak, and then you think of Bitcoin, how do you move between these currencies? What is the exchange rate between them? How do you know that a Kodak coin is worth 2 Bitcoins or 5 Bitcoins? Right? And how does that capability work? Well, if you think about it today, every country has a currency. And there are lots of us in the risk management space that make money in that whole thing about foreign exchange transaction activities, right? You sell foreign exchange, you buy foreign exchange, you make a ton of money on it if you know what you're doing. I expect that within the coin world that is going to happen very, very quickly. If I had figured that out before the end of last year, I could have traded many of my Bitcoins for something else so that when Bitcoin fell, I would have been not in this position that I was in if I held on to Bitcoin through the end of February and still be in the coin world and not pay taxes. But the exchange between coins, the exchange infrastructure on the coins, and how you understand what's the value of one coin versus the other, and the arbitrage of that is an opportunity that is out there. That's just leveraging the blockchain network to do what I call a new form of business in the financial world, all within the coin space. A thought, risky as it may sound, that will make a lot of money. This is just an overview of the firm. We are here to help. We're here to help people set your infrastructures up, think about how to get the risk capabilities to minimize your losses, how to address the issues that could be very catastrophic to you as you go forward, and as this industry matures, how you can take advantage of some of the capabilities that are available. Thank you. Well, I think I got through that pretty quickly, so there's some time for some questions, I believe. Sure.
You said $1 billion has been lost already in the last 6 years because of insufficient security. Do you see that getting fixed in the next few years, or is going to be $3 billion lost in the next few years because of some kind of volume coming in?
So because of the volume coming in, I expect the losses to grow, but at a slower rate. Right? I mean, you've got more than 2,000 ICOs out there. You probably have 4,000 and 5,000 in the next 3 years. Not everyone is going to get this right, and so there's going to be more pain in the process. But if you think about it, if you lose $1 billion over 6 years with 1,000 ICUs and you lose another $2 billion with 4,000 over 3 years, I think that's a much slower rate. And people have to embrace the fact that they need to protect their asset base the same way like any other institution does today, and recognize that. I mean, I think the message that I heard today from most of the presenters is, this is new. Take advantage of it now that it's new. And, understand what's available, but this is a capability that you need to think about as you're going this out.
Can you talk a little bit about the insurance landscape that may be arising for insuring losses for companies on the market?
I think that's a slippery slope. So let me start off by saying I am not aware of any proper insurance coverage that has been put in place so far for this. So that's one comment I've made. The second thing is I think the actuarial scientists are still trying to figure out how to really price this structure. I mean, if you think about it, we're struggling with pricing the coin itself, much less pricing the structure for the insurance to hedge. So I'm not sure there's an insurance opportunity yet to hedge it. And then third is the firms that are doing the computation and figuring this out. What we have so far is actual losses. We don't have what I call synthetic losses captured or understood. So it's where there's an actual dollar value converted to some basic currency that is being computed, that's what we're using to do the calculations today, right? So I would expect this to evolve. The first set of insurance firms to step out ahead of this to help are going to make a lot of money or lose a lot of money. Right? But I don't think that's understood. I don't know that we're there yet.
How would you compare, I mean, is there a way to even compare the losses statistically between a centralized institution versus a blockchain-based decentralized institution today?
Yeah, I think we can parse that. But most of those, I think, are with the decentralized institutions. I was just trying to think quickly on my feet to figure out if I could remember if there are any firms in there that are actually centralized today on that construct. I'm not aware of any of those that have done that. But if they are, they would be probably small. The big ones are all the decentralized networks, permissionless networks as we call them. So I think that's the bigger portion of that loss value. Well, thank you very much for your time.